Yep, that's a chunk of a beam. Alright, so check it out. This is my first captured ring goblet that I ever turned. I did not film that. I should have, because in the 4 short months that I've been doing this, it's probably the coolest thing that I've turned, and definitely the one thing that I'm the most proud of. So, here's what I'm thinking. This goblet is going to be a gift for my daughter, and her boyfriend probably needs some sort of a tankard to use alongside of the goblet. So I'm thinking maybe we cut a chunk out of this and turn a goblet out of this, or a tankard out of this, and it'll be kind of a segmented tankard, right? So it's got a couple things going for it that I kind of like. I've seen some other people do some stuff out of dimensional lumber, and it seems to me like this beam is just a bunch of 2x4s glued together. So it should work out quite well, right? I don't know. We're gonna see. Okay, so I cut a chunk of that beam off. It was a 6x8 beam, so that means it was 5.5 inches across, because that's how dimensional lumber works. So I cut it 5.5 inches long, so that it's 5.5 inches here, 5.5 inches here, and then 7.5 inches long. And then we're going to, I've chucked it up between centers, and we're going to rough this thing out. Start making a tankard out of it. So let's get to that. Okay, so we finally got this roughed into a round shape. That took way longer than I thought it was going to, and I'll be honest, it's probably taxing this little lathe about as good as it can. This thing is big and heavy, and really easy for me to stall it with the tools. This poor little lathe is really struggling. I'm probably right at the limits of it with this thing. It's just really big and heavy. I roughed it out quite a bit with this big Robert Sorby. It's actually a multi-tip tool, and I use it quite a bit for hollowing. But it also worked really well in sort of a negative rake scraper situation to help round this thing off. And then it was also just a lot of my little bowl gouge and a lot of trips to the sharpener. I must have resharpened this thing 6 or 8 times just to get this little blank roughed down to a round shape. It was tough. It was just a lot of sharpening, keep a really sharp tip, take very light passes. This is really stretching my abilities quite a bit because I tend to be a little bit aggressive. I really go at it with the tools, and it's just not working here. So this is a lot more of a finesse situation, and that's not something I'm super good at. So I'm learning quite a bit about how to calm down my aggressiveness with the tools, and just be a lot finer with the cuts. Just trying to keep this is a variable speed lathe, so it's not like some of your typical mono speed lathes. It doesn't have the torque. What happens is when the tool starts to slow the motor down, the variable speed mechanism cuts the power load to the motor so that it doesn't burn it up. So you actually lose all your torque. So it's really more about, with a variable speed lathe, what I've learned is it's more about just keeping the motor RPMs as high as you can, keep your tool as sharp as you can, and take very, very light cuts. And for me, like I said, I'm very aggressive on the tools. So that's been a struggle, but I am learning. So I've got it roughed into a round shape. Now I'm going to play with my little sketch that I did on how I want this thing to look. Try to start laying that out, and then we'll see if I can start shaping it into something that looks cool. I know what I'm going for here, but you'll kind of see it develop as I work on it. So let's start working on that. was a gnarly catch. Why I hate this feature. That's an even bigger one. Get that out, I can guarantee that. Okay, well, I've got the outside kind of shaped the way I want it. You probably saw a couple nasty catches. I'm not the world's greatest with the skew chisel. I'm still trying to figure that thing out. We don't get along very well. So then I had to go back and reshape it to get rid of the marks from that catch. So it's a little bit smaller than it used to be, but I think it's still a pretty massive size, which was kind of what I was going for. I want it to be sort of overstated and kind of comical. So I think we're getting there. It's definitely got a couple cracks right here, and you can see that they go clear through to the other side. So I'm definitely going to have to do something about those before I start hollowing it out. So I'm probably going to fill that with some super glue and something, probably some dust, because I don't really do the resin thing. But I think I've got a shape that I like here. It's starting to look pretty cool. I just need to get the outside sanded through all the grits. It's got, you know, it had a little bit of tear out here and here, so I need to sand through that. I couldn't quite get it the way I wanted it, but and then I've also got some other things that I want to do to the outside of it, but all in all, I'm really digging the way it's starting to look. It almost has like a target look right there, and then these two pieces kind of have a similar. It's really neat looking. So I just need to get it sanded out so that it's nice and smooth and looking right. So, and then we'll start to deal with hollowing this thing out, which may be a task, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I've got this thing sanded up to 2000 grit. I didn't show you any of that because sanding is pretty boring. So I've gone ahead and what I did was I sanded it up to 600 grit, applied sanding sealer to it, let that dry, came back to it with the 600 and worked from 600 up to 2000 grit. And then I also came back and I burned these 4 lines here. And now we're going to come at it with the Odie's oil and give it a finish. Okay, we'll let that sit for a little while and then we'll get to hollowing this thing out. Okay, I think we've got it about as deep as I really want to go with it. It's down to about here, somewhere right around there. And I don't want to go all the way down. I want the bottom to have a little bit of heft to it, you know. My goal there was to have a heavy mug that you could slam down and it would make a sound, right? I want the base to have some weight to it so it doesn't fall over, and so it just has that sound, you know. So I think we're going to leave it at that. That's probably deep enough to hold a good sized beer. I am not going to go much thinner on these walls just because I already broke it out once and I don't want to do that again. So I think we're going to call that good. I'm going to come back to the outside of it and fix up this finish because it's not that great now that I had to move that line down there, and I kind of cut that line a little too deep, and then it didn't burn right. My wire didn't fit right in there like it did the other three, so it doesn't look as good, but that's okay. And then I think I still need to clean up this space, sand the inside of it, and then get it all finished inside and out. So that's going to take a while for me to sand all of this, and apply the finish, and I'll bring you guys back when I get to that point. Okay guys, so what I've done is sanded this thing on the inside up to 600 grit. I came back to the outside, sanded it back with 1000, and then again at 2000 just to clean it up a little bit more from where I had scuffed it up a little bit while working on the inside. And then came back over the whole thing with Odie's oil. I told you guys I love that stuff as a finish. It's great. And then I also coated the outside of this with Howard's paste wax. Buffed that up a little bit so it's got a nice shine to it. So this will be the mug part of this tankard that I'm making. And now you can kind of see the design I was going for. A little bit of a base there, and then instead of doing a typical like barrel shape, what I wanted to do was something a little more comic-y looking, kind of inspired by, like, you know, World of Warcraft kind of stuff. So invert the barrel and give it that indented shape, and then I still got to put a handle on this somehow, but I think when I'm done it's gonna look pretty cool. And like I said, I only hollowed it down to about there, so it's got that sound to it. I just wanted to have a little weight so it doesn't fall over, and I think it's gonna work great. It'll still hold quite a bit of beer. So it should be perfect. But yeah, like I said, I still got to get a handle on this thing. I got to figure out a shape. I've got something in mind, and then I got to shape that. And so you guys will see me do the handle for that a little bit later, probably in another video, and then I'll put this thing together in that. But here's the mug part of the tankard, and I think it's looking pretty cool. Not bad for you know, working with what was a chunk of a beam, right? All right, I'll see you in the next video. And if you like all this stuff, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when the next video is coming. See you then.